The showroom lights were the kind that flattered everything except honesty. They caught the chrome, the glass, the press lapels of men who had somewhere better to be. And they caught Marcus too, though nobody was looking at him the way they looked at those other things. He was crouched beside the engine bay of an Italian V12 that had gone silent 3 days ago, his jacket worn at both elbows, his hands the hands of a man who had spent 20 years learning the language that machines speak when they are about to fail. He was not guessing. He never guessed. He pressed 2 fingers against the timing housing and felt what was there, a hairline fracture, barely visible, the kind of thing that looks like nothing until it becomes everything. He closed his eyes for 1 second. When he opened them, he already knew the repair sequence, the parts list, the hours. He knew it the way you know your own address. Lily was sitting in a plastic chair near the service desk, legs dangling 3 inches above the floor, drawing the small notebook she carried everywhere. She was 7 years old, and she had her mother's patience, the kind that doesn't need to be performing itself to be real. She hadn't looked up when the men in suits walked past her. She hadn't looked up when someone laughed too loudly near the showroom entrance. She was drawing a house with 2 windows and a large tree, and that was enough for her right now. Marcus glanced at her once. Just once. Then he went back to the engine. Richard Hale's voice carried the way voices do when they've been trained to carry. Not loud exactly, but present in every corner of the room without trying. He was tall, well-dressed, and he moved through the showroom the way owners move through spaces they had decided belonged to them. He had a small group of investors arranged around him like a solar system, and he was speaking with the easy confidence of a man who has never been seriously wrong about anything, or at least has never been in a room where being wrong had consequences. This was a launch event. Cameras were present. Journalists stood near the entrance with lanyards around their necks. The seized engine was a minor inconvenience in the margin of a very good day. "That car is dead," Hale said. He said it almost pleasantly, the way you'd say the weather had turned. "Total loss. We'll have a replacement brought in by Thursday." These things happen. Marcus stood up slowly. He did not wipe his hands. There was no point yet. "Sir," he said, "it's not a total loss." Hale turned. The look he gave Marcus was the look men give furniture when it speaks. "Excuse me? There's a fracture in the timing housing. The crankshaft is intact. If this were a complete failure, the vibration signature would be different. I'd hear it and feel it differently. This engine is reparable. 3 days of work. Maybe 4. A pause settled over the small crowd around Hale. Then Hale smiled, the kind of smile that is really a door closing. He glanced toward the investors beside him, one eyebrow raised just slightly, and a few of them offered the polite smiles of people who understand they are being invited to agree. "And you are," Hale said. "Marcus, floor mechanic, floor mechanic." Hale let the words sit in the air a moment, examined them, found them useful. "I appreciate the enthusiasm. I genuinely do. But we are professionals who have assessed this vehicle, and I think your time is probably better spent." He paused, and the pause was deliberate. "Elsewhere on the floor." Someone near the back laughed. Not everyone. Just enough. Marcus said nothing. He looked at the engine bay one more time. The fracture was still there, still real, still fixable, indifferent to everything that had just been said about it. Then he picked up his wrench, closed his toolbox, and walked back toward the service area. No argument, no parting word. The kind of silence that has already made its point and doesn't need to repeat it. In the far corner of the showroom, Zara, Hale's new operations director, 3 weeks into the role, had watched all of it. She had watched Marcus's face when he turned away. It was not angry. It was not embarrassed. It was tired in a specific way. The tiredness of a man who has been right too many times in rooms that weren't listening. She said nothing. Not yet, but she noted his name in the way you note something you know you will need later. Lily looked up when Marcus came back. "All done," she said. "Yeah," Marcus said. He took her hand. "Let's go." Outside, the sun was doing what the sun does, present, indifferent, making no comment on what had just happened inside. Marcus's truck was parked at the far end of the lot, away from the newer cars. Lily climbed in and opened her notebook again. Marcus stood beside the driver's door for a moment and looked back at the showroom's glass entrance, where Hale was still visible inside. Still talking? still performing for the room. Then Marcus got in, started the engine, and drove home. The workshop behind the house had been a garage once. Now it was something harder to name. Part repair space, part thinking space, part the only place in the world where Marcus felt like the full version of himself rather than an edited one. The tools on the walls were organized with the kind of precision that looks obsessive from the outside, but makes perfect sense from inside. Every wrench in sequence, every socket in its labeled drawer, because an hour spent searching is an hour not spent working, and Marcus had learned a long time ago that time was the one thing he could not manufacture more of. An old radio sat on the shelf above the workbench. It was always tuned to the same station. Classic rock, late nights, the kind of music that doesn't ask anything of you. Marcus had never changed it. It was Sarah's station. Sarah, her photograph was not in the workshop. It was inside the house, in the hallway outside Lily's room, in a simple wooden frame that Lily had painted herself when she was 5. Small handprints along the border in yellow paint. Marcus had made a decision, early on, not to bring Sarah's photograph into the workspace. Here was where the work happened. And work required a certain kind of forward motion that memory could interrupt. Missing her was something he did, but he did it on a schedule his body had developed without his permission. Early morning certain songs, the specific smell of rain on warm concrete that meant nothing to anyone else and everything to him. In the workshop, he kept it at bay. He could not afford otherwise. He had lost her 3 years ago on an ordinary Tuesday. Lily had been at school. Marcus had been under a car. The world had rearranged itself in the space of a phone call, and had not offered any explanation for why it felt entitled to do that. Brain aneurysm. The doctor said it was sudden, painless, that she would not have felt anything. Marcus chose to believe that for Lily's sake. For his own sake, he believed nothing and kept moving. The routine that followed was not a coping mechanism. It was a structure. Morning, take Lily to school. Day, work. Evening, collect Lily. Night, after she slept, the workshop. That was the shape of it. No self-pity, no performance of grief, no narrative about resilience. Just the next thing and the next and the thing after that. Because Lily needed someone who showed up, and Marcus had decided that showing up was the one promise he would not break. What the routine concealed was considerable. In the bottom drawer of the workbench, there were 3 mechanic certifications from 3 different countries, obtained over 15 years, never framed, never mentioned. There was a letter from an aerospace engineering firm thanking him for his contract work on a diagnostic system for turbine failures. The kind of work that required a specific combination of mechanical intuition and systems thinking that most people either have or don't and cannot be fully taught. The engineer he had worked with had asked him, on the last day of the contract, why he was doing floor work at a dealership. Marcus had picked up his bag and said, "Work is work." The engineer had looked at him for a long moment, and then nodded, because there was no answer to that. That night in the workshop, Marcus's hands were occupied with customer's old Honda, but his mind was on the Italian V12. He couldn't stop it. The fracture pattern, the repair sequence, the specific tools required. It arranged itself in his head with the automatic clarity of something already solved. He took a scrap of paper and sketched it out, not because anyone had asked, not because it would lead anywhere. Simply because not sketching it was not an option his brain was offering. Then Lily appeared in the doorway. She was supposed to be asleep. It was 10:30. She was dragging her blanket behind her, eyes half closed, hair loose around her face. "Dad," she said, "I need water." Marcus put down the pen, got up, got her water. Then they stood together for a moment in the workshop doorway. The night outside was cool and quiet, and Lily leaned against the frame with the boneless ease of a child who was mostly asleep already. "That man was laughing at you today," she said. Direct. The way children are direct when they haven't yet learned that some observations are supposed to stay inside. "Yeah," Marcus said. "Did it hurt?" "A moment. A little." Lily pulled her blanket tighter. "My teacher says people who laugh at others are usually scared of something." She paused. "She says it's like a disguise." Marcus looked at his daughter. 7 years old, and she had already understood something it took most people decades to reach, if they reached it at all. He kissed the top of her head, the place where her hair curled slightly at the crown. "Your teacher is a smart woman. So are you." Lily said, without irony, without performance. Then she turned and padded back inside, blanket trailing behind her. Marcus stood in the doorway for a while after she was gone. The workshop light fell across the floor behind him. He picked up the scrap paper with the repair sequence on it, looked at it once, then folded it and put it in his jacket pocket. The email arrived the next morning at 7:42. It was short, formal, and written in the specific tone of institutional language that has been designed to communicate maximum impact with minimum accountability. Following a review of recent conduct, your services are no longer required. Your final payment will be processed within 14 business days. No meeting, no phone call, no explanation beyond the one that didn't need to be written because both parties already understood it perfectly. Hale had been embarrassed in front of his investors, and Marcus had been the instrument of that embarrassment, and so Marcus was gone. He read it 3 times. Then he set his phone face down on the kitchen table and picked up his coffee. It was cold. He drank it anyway. Upstairs, Lily was getting ready for school. He could hear the specific soundtrack of her mornings, the thud of shoes being located, water running. The brief silence that meant she was standing in front of her mirror, deciding something important about her appearance that would be invisible to everyone except her. Marcus listened to all of it and made her lunch. Sandwich, apple, the biscuit she liked. His hands worked automatically while something in his chest tightened and then, slowly, deliberately, was told to wait. He had known this was possible. He had not known it would be this fast. But power's first instinct, when it has been made to look small in public, is to remove the thing that made it look small. That was not cynicism. That was just a pattern, repeated across every industry, every hierarchy, every room where one person had significantly more to lose from the truth than another. What he had not anticipated was Zara calling 40 minutes later. She had found his number through the dealership's service records. Her voice was measured, careful, the voice of someone choosing each word with the awareness that words have weight. "I know what happened," she said, "and I know you were right." A pause. "But I can't do anything right now. Hale's launch is in 30 days. After that, when things settle..." "Maybe," Marcus said. "I'm sorry." He believed her. That was a complicated part. He believed that she was sorry, believed that she was not a bad person, believed that she was caught in the same machinery that caught most people who worked inside systems built around someone else's ego. The machinery didn't require villains at every level. It only required enough people at enough levels to decide that the cost of speaking was too high today. Tomorrow, perhaps. After the launch. When things settled. "It's all right," he said, and ended the call. Through a former colleague at the dealership, a young technician named Arif, who occasionally stopped by the workshop for no stated reason and stayed for 2 hours talking about engines. Marcus learned what had happened after he left. The V12 had been officially written off. An insurance claim had been filed. A replacement car had been ordered from the manufacturer at significant cost. And the dealership's head technician, a senior man with an impressive title and a consistent habit of diagnosing problems from a distance, had confirmed to Hale that yes, total loss, nothing to be done, very unfortunate. Arif had been in the room when the head technician said it. Arif had been standing near the back, and he had known, because Marcus had told him, because Arif was young and genuinely curious, and had actually listened, that it wasn't true. He had said nothing. He was 23 years old, 8 months into his first real job, and the man speaking was his direct superior, and the man being agreed with owned the building. So he had said nothing. Marcus did not blame him for that either. He understood the geometry of it too well. That night Marcus opened a fresh notebook. He wrote the repair sequence from memory. Every step, every part number, every hour estimate. Thorough, precise, the kind of documentation that could walk a competent technician through the entire job, without a single question. He wrote it not because anyone had asked and not because he expected anyone ever would. He wrote it because the problem existed and the solution existed, and somewhere in him there was a thing that could not leave those two facts unconnected on the page. Lily came downstairs while he was writing. She looked at the notebook. "Homework," she said. Marcus almost smiled. "Something like that." She nodded, satisfied, and went to get a glass of water. On her way back upstairs, she paused in the doorway. "Dad," she said, "you'll figure it out." Not a question. Not encouragement exactly. Just a statement of existing fact, delivered with the complete confidence of someone who has never had reason to doubt it. Marcus watched the empty doorway after she was gone. Then he turned back to the notebook and kept writing. 30 days later, on a Tuesday morning, Marcus was underneath a '94 Land Cruiser when his phone rang. He rolled out, checked the screen. "Zara, the launch event is today," she said. Her voice had changed. The careful measured quality was still there, but underneath it something else, a tightness that had not been present before. The replacement car was supposed to be the centerpiece. Live demonstration, full press coverage, the investors who were here last month, all of it. She stopped. "It won't start." Marcus said nothing. "That's not all of it." She paused again. "The showroom's electrical grid went down 20 minutes ago. Main supply, backup generator, all of it. Hale is on stage. The cameras are running. Everything is dark and nothing is working, and the head technician is not answering his phone." Marcus sat up slowly on the workshop floor. He looked at the Land Cruiser. He looked at his hands. "The replacement car has the same fault as the original," he said. It was not a question. Zara's silence confirmed it. "And the electrical grid failure is connected. Same grounding fault, different expression. Someone installed the replacement system without checking the junction compatibility." He was already seeing it. The fault tree, the sequence, the single point of failure that had been waiting 30 days to become someone's very public problem. Your head technician won't be able to diagnose it. This isn't standard automotive training. This is an aerospace-level electrical fault, and it requires a specific diagnostic approach that most people in your industry have never encountered. "Marcus." Her voice shifted slightly. "Hale wants to apologize to you personally. He wants you back. Your position, double the salary, whatever you need." "I don't need an apology," Marcus said. Quiet, final, a silence. "What I need," he said, "is a written protocol. After today, every diagnostic report from every technician at that dealership gets a second review. No exceptions, no hierarchy. The work is assessed on its merits. And Arif, the junior technician who was there last month, he stays, and he gets a promotion." Zara was quiet for a moment. "I can confirm both of those things." "Then I'll come." He ended the call, sat on the workshop floor for a moment longer. The radio was playing something he didn't hear. He looked at the shelf where Sarah's station played its classic rock into the middle distance, and he thought about Tuesdays. How many of the significant things in his life had happened on Tuesdays? As if the week needed one day to keep reminding him that it was paying attention. He packed his toolkit, not hurriedly, methodically, each tool checked and placed the same way he always did it. When the kit was ready, he carried it to the truck and then came back inside because Lily was in the kitchen eating a late breakfast, school having finished an hour ago. She looked up, took in the toolkit by the door, the jacket he was wearing, the particular quality of stillness in his face that she had learned meant something was happening. "Where are you going?" she said. "Back to that place," he said. "They need something fixed." Lily considered this with the focused seriousness she brought to important questions. Then she stood up and crossed the kitchen, and did something that stopped Marcus completely. She reached up and straightened the collar of his jacket. The gesture was precise, automatic, entirely Sarah's. She had never done it before. He did not know if she knew where it came from. "Fix it properly," she said, "so it doesn't break again." Marcus looked at his daughter for a long moment. The kitchen was quiet. Outside, a car passed. A dog somewhere registered an opinion. The ordinary world continued its ordinary business. He placed his hand briefly on top of her head. "Yeah," he said, "that's the plan." He picked up the toolkit, walked to the truck, and drove toward the thing that had been waiting 30 days for the one person who actually understood it. The showroom was running on emergency lighting when Marcus walked in, a low blue-gray glow that made the expensive cars look like exhibits in a closed museum. Investors stood in small clusters near the walls, phones in hand, doing the specific kind of waiting that wealthy people find most intolerable because it is waiting without information. Two journalists sat near the entrance with their lanyards and their laptops and the alert patience of people who have learned that the story sometimes arrives through a side door. Hale was standing at the edge of the stage. The presentation screens behind him were dark. The replacement car, the one that was supposed to start on cue, supposed to purr for the cameras, supposed to demonstrate that everything was exactly as it should be, sat silent in the center of the floor. Hale's tie was slightly loosened. The performance was still there, the posture still upright, but something behind the eyes had gone quiet in a way that had nothing to do with the lighting. Marcus did not look at him. He went directly to the electrical junction panel at the rear of the showroom, opened it, and began. Arif was there, standing near the back wall with his arms crossed, and the expression of someone who had spent 30 days carrying a thing they should have put down earlier. When he saw Marcus, he straightened. Something in his face shifted, relief and guilt arriving together the way they usually do. Marcus looked at him once and nodded. One small, direct nod. No recrimination. No acknowledgement of the month that had passed and what had been left unsaid in it. Just, we have work to do, and you are capable of doing it. And that is what matters now. Come here, Marcus said. Watch what I'm doing and tell me what you see. Arif came. Looked. Within 40 seconds, he said, grounding bus. Junction B. It's carrying twice the load it was rated for. Right. Marcus said. And why? A pause. Then, the replacement system was installed without recalculating the load distribution. Someone assumed the original spec was still valid. Exactly. Marcus handed him a tool. Left side. I'll take the right. They worked without narration. The room watched, not because Marcus invited the room to watch, but because there was nothing else to watch, and because there is something in human attention that is drawn instinctively toward competence, toward the sight of someone who knows exactly what they're doing and does not require an audience to do it. Hale watched from the stage. The journalists watched from the entrance. The investors, who had come to see a demonstration, got one, just not the one that had been planned. 40 minutes after Marcus had walked through the door, the lights came on. Full power, clean and immediate, no flicker. The room exhaled collectively. Someone near the back said something and was shushed. Marcus was already moving toward the car. The engine repair took 3 hours. Arif worked alongside him for all of it, learning in the way people learn when they are shown rather than told. Not receiving information, but absorbing a method, a way of thinking through a problem from first principles rather than matching it to a template. When the V12 finally turned over, clean, steady, the deep, unhurried sound of an engine that had been properly understood and properly treated. A few people in the room started without meaning to, as if the sound had reached something in them that bypassed thought entirely. Hale walked across the floor. The cameras were still running. The irony of that was not lost on anyone present. The launch that had failed was now recording something more unscripted and more honest than anything that had been planned for it. Hale stopped a few feet from Marcus. He looked older than he had 30 days ago, or perhaps just less curated. I was wrong, he said. He did not dress it up. I should have listened to you. On the first day, I should have listened. He paused. I am sorry. Marcus looked at him. He received the apology without performance, neither dismissing it nor celebrating it. He had not come for this. He had come for the work, for the protocol, for Arif's future at this company. The apology was Hale's to give, and it was appropriate that he had given it, and it had landed where it was meant to land, and now it was done. Thank you, Marcus said. Simple. Sufficient. He picked up his toolkit. Zara was near the door. She had been there for the last hour, watching, and she handed him a folded document as he reached her, the written protocol. Signed. He looked at it once, nodded, and put it in his jacket pocket beside the folded scrap of paper that had been there for 30 days. Outside, the air was cooler than it had been that morning. Marcus stood beside his truck for a moment and did not do anything in particular. Zara came out behind him. She stood nearby without speaking, and the silence between them was not uncomfortable. It was a silence of two people who had just been through something together and have not yet decided what to make of it. You could have asked for a lot more than protocol, she said eventually. I know, Marcus said. She looked at him. He looked back. There was something in the space between those two things. Something unresolved, unhurried, with no intention of announcing itself. She nodded slowly. The way people nod when they're filing something away for a future they can't see the shape of yet. He got into the truck. Lily was on the front path when he pulled up, sitting cross-legged on the pavement in the last of the afternoon light, notebook open on her knees. She looked up when she heard the truck. "Fixed?" she said. "Fixed," he said. She nodded once, satisfied, and looked back down at her notebook. Marcus stood on the path and looked at what she was drawing, a large detailed picture of a workshop, tools on the walls in careful rows, and two figures standing in the doorway. The larger figure had a toolbox. The smaller one was holding her hand up as if waving, or perhaps as if reaching for something just outside the frame. Lily had written something small at the bottom of the page in her careful, slightly uneven handwriting. He always knew. Marcus stood there in the quiet of the late afternoon, the street empty around him, the day done. He did not say anything. There was nothing that needed saying. He put his hand gently on his daughter's head and stood there while the light changed around them both, that specific late light that makes ordinary things look briefly like they matter, which they do, which they always did.